So part of this, meditation, visualization, intention setting practice was to not only know what it was that I wanted, but also to be able to visualize what it looks like and be able to smell it and sense it and taste it and go through all the sensory experiences of this vision that I'm going to manifest. And that part's key. A lot of people will do intention setting stuff, do visualizations, but not actually feel it in their heart like it's coming true. That part right there is what turns the ignition. A lot of people got the key. A lot of people know how to put the key in the vehicle to turn the ignition. To me, at least for my practice, that's the secret right there.
We'll make it out and fall in love tonight.
I will say, if there's one thing, I just love having fun with this. To me, that's kind of like the secret sauce. It's like love is the secret sauce of cooking. Well, having fun is the secret sauce of this, because I think it translates.
Perfect. Yeah, we love that. That's a great way to look at it too. That's what we try to do. We don't always accomplish it. Sometimes we get like into the weeds with stuff, and this podcast can get real heavy over time. But at the end of the day, it really is just about us trying to show up and share like the healing.
Let's take them on a journey. Yeah, let's take them on a journey.
Totally.
Yeah.
So we get to learn about you today, Rafael. I'm super excited about it. Are you from California originally, born and raised there, or?
No. I moved here 18 years ago. I spent a lot of my childhood in Seattle. So I'm a product of being left-handed and from Seattle when, Nirvana Nevermind drops in 6th grade, right? So Pearl Jam 10 or Nirvana Nevermind, that whole grunge scene was a big part to my childhood. And I was also, I think I went to 12 different schools growing up and moved from born in Ohio, went to Seattle, went to the Philippines, came to Tacoma, Biloxi, Mississippi, back to Ohio, back to Seattle, and a bunch of different spots in Seattle until I moved down to SoCal about 18 years ago.
So that's a great place to start. Yeah. Like that childhood and moving that much, that definitely has had a massive impact on you. Like, let's get into it. I'm curious as to like why all the moves and everything.
Oh, my dad was in the Air Force. So straightforward. Pursuing his passions. He played the trombone in the Air Force band. So it's a great way to pursue loving being a musician, probably not a great way to support growing a family. So at that point, he decided to go back to school, become a laser physicist. But in the interim, it created the opportunity to always be moving. It landed me in a spot where I was always the new kid, for good or for bad. So come to present day, it gave me a lot of resilience, flexibility, adaptivity, how to be comfortable being the new person, and so on. Downside of it, I have a December birthday. School starts in September. That means the pressure is on to make enough friends to warrant a birthday party.
Oh my gosh.
So I had an entire childhood without birthday parties, in part because like the most meaningful amount of friends you would have is like 2 or 3 by the time December rolls around. And that's not a party. That's like a birthday get together. So there you go.
Even having the birthday in December is a letdown too, to some extent, right? Because you've got everything else surrounding. You've got the Thanksgiving, you've got the Christmas, you've got all those other holidays that are definitely taking up the light.
Yeah, I was born exactly a week before Christmas, so December 18th. So I'm literally overshadowed by Jesus. But December 18th, it's a magical day. So we got me, Christina Aguilera, Brad Pitt, Steven Spielberg, Billie Eilish. I'm in good company.
Holy cow. Dr. Seuss was born on my birthday. My birthday's March 2nd. Do you know anybody on yours, babe?
I think Elvis was, but I'm not sure. Let's remember something like
Elvis.
Thank you very much.
I don't remember if that's actually right, but that just came to my head. So I'm like, sure. I had a book once that was right.
Like with all things Elvis, it's like, yeah, it generally works. Let's not look too deep into it. We're better off on a surface experience.
So again, like if your dad's in the Air Force, do you have any siblings?
I have an older brother, 2.5 years older.
Like just take us through childhood, because we're always fascinated. I think that like 0 to 7 years old is typically, in my opinion, at least, where so much is shaped about our subconscious and the way that we kind of move through life. All those programs that we get and the way that we see ourselves and the way that we see the outside world and all of those kind of different things. And then it's really just unpacking all of that stuff over the course of our life and putting pieces back together. So what were those first kind of 7 years like for you?
Well stated. Totally agree. So those first 7 years, like I said, born in Ohio, moved to Seattle, moved to the Philippines, back to Tacoma by Seattle, then to Mississippi, and enduring a hurricane in Mississippi. And that's my first 7 years right there. Right. So, the takeaways from that is that life is fleeting. It's an adventure. It's not a period at the end of the sentence, man. It's a comma, and that comma keeps moving. And so, how that showed up in my, wild and adventurous 20s, right? Which landed me in rehab by 35, which then leaves, now 10 years into recovery, that sense of renewal and life being the opportunity for these like fast and fresh adventures. That's still my rhythm. So I think you nailed it with that early on, that the rhythm that gets set there in those first formative years is absolutely the framework by which I'm living my current reality. So I totally agree on that.
What were some of the like positive sides of that really benefited and, shaped and molded you? And then what are some of the negative side as well, right? Because obviously we've got both factors in there.
Sure. Right. So the positive side is you learn how to be the new kid in school, learn how to be adaptive, learn the flexibility of our persona outward facing, what works, what doesn't. I'm able to trial balloon a new persona each year to see, the effect of it. And all these things happening, I don't even know on like a conscious level, but more so in an adaptive survival type level. So that ends up being a strong suit. That ends up being a tremendously, positive and helpful thing to be able to have a flexible persona based on the environment that I'm in. And learning that is just like is normal, is what we're doing. The downside, like I said, like with a December birthday, that means you're from the moment school starts, you're on this frantic race to make friends so that you don't have another depressing non-birthday birthday get together where only 2 people attend because you don't really know anyone that well. And so then, how does that show up later on in life, right? Where, there's probably compensation and overcompensation to try and create meaningful relationships so that you don't feel a sense of that, aloneness from a friend level. Trying to fill a void, trying to fill a gap, trying to fill a God-shaped hole, right? With all sorts of different things. And probably some of that comes from that always being the new kid and always trying to prove myself. There's a lot that got shaped in those early years.
Mom and dad still together?
They are. They just celebrated 50.
Nice.
Yeah, so they just celebrated their 50th anniversary a month ago. They went to Japan together. They're lovely. It's a true love story, and it's awesome for me to see that modeled because now I know it's possible.
Right. That was my follow-up question, because that's 50 years of marriage, 50 years of being together. We've been together for
13.
I paused and
married,
panicked.
Right? Married 10.
Yeah, we just celebrated 10 years, but we've been together for 13 years.
13-ish.
And when you look back, what are some of the things that you really take away from seeing your parents over the years and taking like what were the lessons that you really learned, even just subconsciously? Because I think so much of it is learned, right? We're just absorbing it by watching and being in that environment. But
yeah, life has seasons. It really does, particularly when we look at things through the framework of 5 decades, right? And that successful long-term relationships take work. And that doesn't mean, being in constant couples therapy type of thing. Like, I don't even think my parents have ever gone to couples therapy or anything like that. More so like they both care and they both are effortful. I've always felt that if 2 people are growing and they're not consciously growing together, then they're probably growing apart. And that can show up in a lot of different ways. And it doesn't mean that they have to have, shared likes all the time, like having our own separate worlds. That's very valuable. But in the longer term, having a space to be on the same page is so critical. And that's something that my parents have really illustrated. I don't want to say effortlessly, but it kind of dawned. It seems like it's a natural understanding. Hey, if we want to get along and make this work in the long term, let me meet you where you're at. Let me understand where you're at. There's a deep amount of like empathy and compassion between the 2 of them. So it's just, it has modeled for me successful marriages, they don't just happen, right? They take work, and that's okay. That's great. That's the commitment. But the person, that my wife married, gosh, when I was 28, I'm a very, very different person now, and she is as well. That's something to be celebrated. But once again, and I talked to her about this, if we're not growing together, then maybe there's a chance we're growing apart. It's not always the case. And sometimes, two people growing, maybe it's this far apart, but sometimes it's like, phew. And I go to a lot of workshops, weekend workshops, those types of things. And oftentimes, it's me and my wife and 100 other participants, and there's like 4 males there. You know what I'm talking about, right? And I don't know why it is that women seem to be more interested in their continued spiritual growth than men, but whatever, it is what it is. And I consider it competitive advantage being a male in those spaces. And I'm sitting there, and you're having like the Sunday brunch before everyone disembarks, and it's me and my wife and 6 other women, committed to their spiritual growth. And I'm sitting there going, man, these women are going to go home, and their husband's going to say, "Oh, how was it?" And they're going to say, "Oh, it was fine," because they're not going to be able to put into words what Nassim Harriman or Joe Dispenza or Eckhart Tolle was laying down. When we go through those things, they shift us, they change us as people. And now I'm a slightly different person than I was going into the weekend, but in ways that I probably can't reiterate, in an articulate way, because it's complex stuff. And so some part of me feels sad for that situation. They're going to go home, and their husband unknowingly is slightly growing apart from them, having no idea. And the way they figured out, my wife said it was fine. She said she had a fine time. It was cool. I stayed home and watched football with my friends. We're good.
We just got back from a weekend. It was 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks? It was 2
about
weeks,
2 weeks ago, yeah.
From an Abraham Hicks workshop that was 2 weeks or 2 days in Asheville. And it was just like one of the most incredible weekends. I couldn't believe it. We had such a good time. But yeah, that's our Jen. You got an eyelash on you. I'm going to get the eyelash
I knew.
off.
I've been like sitting here.
Here, make a wish.
Wait. It didn't go. Okay, there.
That's the teamwork right there that I'm talking about. Yes.
You mentioned that Rehab. Like, I would love to hear about. Actually, let's go into teenage years, because I think that's go ahead.
I have a question too. Like you mentioned, like trying on these different personas and moving them around so much, and the goal was to get friends. How much of that? It seems like it would be really hard to lean into yourself at that point. It feels like, you're trying on these personas. Do I show up as this? Is this? Where along the way did you find, or maybe it was right off the bat and I completely misunderstood, where you had the ability to sink in and start to really feel like you're showing up as yourself in these spaces? Where do the core of you, start to shine in all these spaces?
Well, that's an awesome question, a very astute one. Right. Because, that next developmental stage between 8 to 12, 9 to 12, when I'm a constantly transforming set of personas to be able to play in this game, the real inward introspection probably doesn't happen until, deep into an LSD trip at 17 or 18, maybe, or even deeper, being in recovery and doing that hard work to keep it, sustain it, and thrive in it. That's where the real work begins. And that's when I really began to understand myself in a way that just wasn't, I was living so much of my childhood through how what I was doing was bouncing off others and reflecting back to me. Right. And call it narcissistic. That word carries a lot of baggage, but if you say, like, in the real classical term of someone who is bouncing off, their impulse off of another source to review its mirrored effect, to a degree, that's really how I learned how to socialize. And in retrospect, paid a dear price for it, because I didn't understand the heart of service. I didn't understand that life wasn't about my adventure. I didn't get that yet. So much of my early life was, well, what is the most interesting adventure that I can have? Right. I think, if you would have asked me age 16, what's the point of life? I would have said, I got this one. Whoever leaves this planet with the coolest adventure of like an ongoing movie tape of what they've gotten to do, that's it right there. And so my life and the decisions that follow were all very much built upon that premise. And it just shows up in the decision making and all the things, like what's the coolest adventure I can have, which is very, very different to me now saying, how much can I serve? How can I be there for others? How can I make an impact and make other people matter? The second path is a much more fulfilling one, it turns out, and a lot less fleeting and dangerous.
That first path is so fun, though. It is so fun. Right.
I think I was like the prototype YOLO mindset. I think I was like proto YOLO.
Proto YOLO.
I recognize that energy.
Just even like I felt like I had the ability to read immediately what people, and of course it's my perception of what people wanted and or needed, right? But like read the scene immediately as far as like what mask did I need to put on, what part did I need to play in order to,
yeah,
in essence, in order to be accepted, obviously, in order to be loved into that scenario or into that space. And it definitely it caught up fast. It was one of those things that at some point in life, it became very, very difficult to maintain all of that simply because there's a facade there. Like there's the distancing between who I really truly am and who I was pretending to be in order to make friends or meet people or be in relationships and all of those kind of different things. So I can relate a lot to that. What was
exactly right?
Like, I'm so fascinated by the 20s, and you said when it was 28 is when you went into rehab. Like, if you're
35, married at 28, rehab at 35.
Okay. What, like, I'm so like, I just want to know the whole story about, because I think that's the part that I think is like our worst parts are oftentimes the parts that crack us open into the best parts, right? So like the darkest parts are usually what lead to the lightest parts. So tell us about that experience, if you don't mind, and share what you're comfortable sharing, of course.
Yeah, listen, the cracks and the breaks are where the light comes in, right?
Yeah,
and
of course.
I could tell you with absolute certainty that rehab was the worst thing that ever happened to me at the time. And I can tell you now that absolutely it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I just didn't understand it at the time. And, my 20s were, that's my 21st birthday. I went to the ER because I jumped off the second story of a Seattle club onto a chandelier. And the chandelier happened to be of like Gothic nature. And so it had these spikes that went through my hand. I let go of the chandelier and I'm still like hanging there. And they had to get like a worker with a ladder to like unhook me like I was a fish. And then we continued to party in the ER. Right. That's a snapshot, but that pretty much, summarizes what happens when you're living a proto YOLO, Captain Jack Sparrow is my idol type of lifestyle. So it was certainly fun. I was the front man and, lead guitarist of a band, all those types of like cultural trappings, as if what all that was where it was at. Because at the time, that's what it really felt like, right? Not realizing that there was a toll I was playing on, what's that Stone Temple Pilots line? Too much tripping and my soul's worn thin. Right. And I really felt, by 30, oh my gosh, I'm so spiritually bankrupt and my soul is so worn thin and I have no connection to anything meaningful. That is a heavy place to be in. And I still see it every day when I work with people that are newcomers, or just trying to get sober. Right. And that despair of being spiritually bankrupt, it's a hard feeling to necessarily put into words. And so, when a person's going through it, I'm able to articulate this and say, yeah, you look into that dark abyss inwards and there's nothing there, just a void, they shake their head saying, yeah, okay, cool. Like, you get me. How do we walk out of rock bottom together? Like, there's really, I don't even know if it's a joke, but a joke of there's a guy who's stuck in rock bottom.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Woolly.
Okay, real talk. Summer's here. We're sweating. We're traveling. We're living life. And you know what makes that all better? Good underwear.
And we're not just talking about your regular old everyday undies. We're talking about merino wool underwear from Woolly. Woolly has our go-to underwear, tank tops, and t-shirts.
And don't let the word wool fool you. They're not itchy or scratchy. Woolly clothing is light, breathable, moisture wicking, and so comfortable.
It's not just about comfort for us either, although that's a huge benefit. Woolly's doing it right. There's no synthetics or microplastics in any of their clothes. Just natural, low-toxic gear that feels good and is good for you.
Oh, and a little insider tip, their French-style thong and bikini are fire right now. I may or may not have a drawer full of them mixed in with my ultimate favorite cheekies, just like my personality.
So if you're ready to level up your base layers, head over to woolly.clothing/Steph Craig right now, and you can save 15% off anything at their website. Be sure to use that promo code Steph Craig at checkout to get that 15% off.
Once you go Woolly, you're not going to want to wear anything else.
It's like this canyon, and a businessman comes along and he looks down there, and the guy says at the rock bottom says, will you please help me? I'm stuck down here. He says, yeah, okay, here. He writes him a check and drops the check down the canyon. The guy gets the check. What am I going to do with this? I can't do anything with this. Along comes a doctor. He says, doctor, please help me. Oh, I've got you. Here, let me write you a prescription. Drops it into the canyon. This doesn't help me. Along comes a priest. Priest, will you please help me? Oh, yes, my son, I will pray for you. He looks up. This doesn't help me. And then someone like me comes along. He says, please, will you help me? And I just jump down into the bottom of the canyon with them. The guy looks at me. Now we're both stuck at rock bottom. Why do you do that? Oh, no, I've been here before. I know the way out. Hold my hand. Let's go walk this together. And that's the name of the game. That's what daily life as a spiritual exercise is for me these days. I can think of nothing more fulfilling than serving somebody else's spiritual growth by sharing in experience, strength, and hope.
I love that. Talk to us about how all of this came to be, like Indivisible Arts, and how you got to this spot in life. Because it feels like something that, it's not something that just happens overnight. You don't have an idea and then to turn this into what you've turned it into. It's something that obviously has taken some time.
Yeah, right. So, Indivisible Arts, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. It's taken us 10 years to become where we're at. And we're helping hundreds, safe to say over thousands of kids now, get to this place of where they're skilled with mental and emotional health tools, right? They're skilled in structuring their inner, and they've learned it through the love of creativity and art, which I think are inherent and nascent into us as kids, as adolescents. And then we become less and less familiar with it. But at that time, creativity and art is the jam, and it's the entry point into the soul. And it's how we're able to so effectively teach what we call the fundamental life tools, right? And so these 7 tools that are at the heart of what we teach. But, the way it all started was, post rehab. And 35, I'm sitting here going, how I need to rebuild my life in a way that supports my recovery and not put strictly going back into creative agency life and its stresses. And let me build something sustainable, or let me at least walk a path that's sustainable for my own recovery. And early on in going to meetings, I just kept hearing the word service. And this idea of service was so strangely like non-native to me somehow. I think when I heard service, as a kid, did we go to a food bank or give money to a homeless person, help a lost cat in a tree? I don't know. I didn't realize that it could be so as simple as focusing on somebody else besides myself. Straight up. Focusing on somebody else. And so then I said, okay, how can I take everything that I've been gifted? Because I've had the most gifted creative career. I've got to travel around the world shooting photography and design snowboards and be on like the half pipe and coping of X Games shooting photography. I've got to do so many cool things, launch all sorts of clothing brands, all this great stuff. Okay, how do I give all of that back to the next generation? How do I teach them to paint, do graphic design, build brands, write music, record music, shoot photography? How can I take everything that all these other great teachers have taught me in my career, give it back to the next generation? And how do I do that while teaching mindfulness? And really just at the core of I just remember being in rehab, and the neurolinguistics professor in there said to me, you know all the voices and thoughts in your head? And I'm like, yeah, I've got too many, and they're like combating with each other, and it's a mess that I'm trying to avoid staring at, which is why I was numbing out in the first place. So yeah, those voices. He says, that's not you. Now, at the moment, I thought he was like pondering like it was somebody else in there type of thing. And I'm like, no, that's me in there. It's not other. No, he said, no. Those voices and thoughts in your head aren't you. You're the one having the thoughts. You're the one listening and observing the thoughts, and you're the one who can change them. And I guess I just never had mindfulness explained to me so simply. And I realize now, rereading, Jack Kornfield and all these things, all this other Eckhart Tolle that I had read before, but I understood it differently now. Right. I think my point of context when I was reading it and learning about it the first time around, it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, watch your thoughts. Like, I get it. But I hadn't been taken down this gnarly road of 10 years of addiction and resentment and obsessive thinking, by which I'd become so enraptured and imprisoned that I had forgot that they weren't me. And I think that's at the heart of so much addiction and a lot of those things. Mental illnesses are, the person is listening to a bunch of voices and thoughts in their head. Those voices and thoughts are saying terrible things. They don't know that's not them, and that they can observe it and get to a place where they can control and change it. Right. And in part because no one had laid that concept at my feet. I figured whatever I think, I like chocolate. I guess I like chocolate. How do I know? I thought it. So it's my opinion. End of story. That's pretty much as far as I had made it. No one had ever told me otherwise. And so, there I am in rehab, and he says, yeah, you're not your thoughts, you're the one watching it. And it was like the veil dropping. It was like the end of Usual Suspects, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, wait, the whole movie looks different now. Let me rethink this. So I'm like revisiting the last 10 years of active addiction from a different perspective, saying, oh my gosh, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And then I go, wait, I made it all the way through high school and college with good grades. How come nobody ever told me this? How come nobody ever laid this single most fundamental piece of information at my feet? Okay, how can we get this into schools? How can I dedicate my life? And it's one of those moments where it's like, I know that I'm dedicated to this for the rest of my life. And I knew it instantaneously. I knew where I was sitting. I knew the room. I'm going to try and teach awareness, which is how we call this tool now, just the tool of awareness. I'm going to try and teach it to as many kids as possible in my lifetime, period. So me being on the podcast today, me writing a book or running the nonprofit, all of it serves that single thing. That to me is what it means to be conscious. A person who is practicing being aware of their thoughts as the aware observer, observing their thoughts with the capacity to thus change the thoughts. That to me is how I define big C conscious, and 1 million conscious youth is my mission, period.
So that's a huge mission, and it's beautiful. And I love everything that you just shared. And I realized as soon as I started that sentence, it sounds like there's a big but coming. There's not. I think it's amazing. The part that sticks out to me is I love the spot where, like you mentioned that, you had heard that before, or maybe you had read some of those books before, but it never really clicked. And the beauty of that, when like you have new awareness of something that you already know, or like you see it through a different lens, or you hear it through a different lens. I just freaking love those moments. And they happen all the time if we open up to it. Like we still get them all the time where it's like a lesson or a teaching, or even just like stuff that we go back and forth talking about. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, we're hearing it finally with, we call it like the difference between sometimes hearing things through trauma ears, because we'll hear stuff when we're really activated. And so it doesn't really land, versus when you're like calm and collected. But even more so, it's just like the big epiphany moment where you hear something else and you're like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. So if it started out like, how do you go from the hope and the dream of what you want to create? Like, what did it originally kind of look like in your mind? Do you know what I mean?
So
how do you go from
yeah, absolutely. And but you bring up something interesting about, but the saying, to whatever degree, like, we never step into the same river twice, right?
Yeah.
Because that second time we step in, we're a different person, and the river itself is different. But what I wonder about sometimes is this dance between the variables of our timing and where we are in life, and who's saying it, how it's being taught, with our capacity to hear it. Thirdly, is there another element in play where we're not supposed to know it until a certain part in life, and that part of our journey is unveiled to us? I'm not sure. It seems like a dance between those, but that to me seems like is worth noting. So how did I turn this into a reality? Okay, this is great. Joey Tabanella is this neurolinguistics professor. I'm going to get this to him so he can see it. So he's the one who tells me, you're not your thoughts, you're the one having the thoughts. I'm like, right on, man. First person to turn me on to Joe Dispenza, these types of things, right? Bruce Lipton. And I go, okay, well, I want to rebuild my life. How do we do this? And so he starts having me meditate 3 times a day, doing visualizations, which to this day, our students do meditate. They meditate every single day with us. We just call them visualizations, right? And it's forays into an active imagination while in a seated meditative state. Really intentioned visualization, it's probably more classic to how like a Joe Dispenza type would knowing what you want, intending on it. And so I began doing this 3 times a day, and really just trying to get still enough, quiet enough for me to be able to transform myself from the inside out in alignment with a vision for me that is my new bullseye. And it was really frustrating. It was for the first week, 10 days. I couldn't think of anything. I couldn't think of what I wanted. And the reason why I bring this up is that anybody who hears this and begins doing, some sort of visualization practice on what their intention is, it can feel like a challenging question to try and tackle if we're all of a sudden trying to say, well, what do I want? Yeah. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Right. And so then I start with it. And I bring this up. I just did a workshop for an entire school district, right? This intention setting visualization type thing. And so that first step, okay, what do you want? There's a paper in front of you with a pencil, write down, what are your intentions? What do you want to come true? And it's like no movement for 2 minutes. Everyone just so is this like a New Year's resolution type thing? Like the idea and the concept was so foreign to them to have a clear understanding of their intention and what they want. It was fascinating. Right. And it was kind of a good, canary in the coal mine on the nature of humanity, that having a vision for what we want can feel so outside of what we're thinking about in our day to day. I think we get into the grind of things, and then the grind becomes the patterns of our life in a way where we stop thinking in this way. And so part of this meditation, visualization, intention setting practice was to not only know what it was that I wanted, but also to be able to visualize what it looks like and be able to smell it and sense it and taste it and go through all the sensory experiences of this vision that I'm going to manifest, to the best of my ability, right? Creating that mental movie that would then charge with the energy of feeling how good it feels that this thing has come true. Right. And that part's key. A lot of people will do intention setting stuff, do visualizations, but not actually feel it in their heart like it's coming true. And so to take it out of the woo and into the practical, the neuroscience is, well, once I begin feeling like it's coming true, and when our kids do it in class, it's so sweet. They start like swaying, like very like Stevie Wonder vibe. They're like doing this visualization, and then now imagine it's come true, and they're all like, it's really cute. That, you know, a trace amount of dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins get released the moment I begin thinking this is true, and I start feeling how good it feels. Okay, well, that even just that trace amount of these feel good internal chemicals make it so our subconscious, right, that's focused on pleasure, says, oh, we want this stuff. Anything related to this vision and this intention, then we're saying yes to it because this is in alignment for what we want, right? And that becomes the super fuel. And so I bring up that subtlety because a lot of people will do these, you know their intentions, know their goals, but not do the element where they're fusing it with heart energy as if it's already come true. That part right there is what turns the ignition. A lot of people got the key. A lot of people know how to put the key in the vehicle to turn the ignition. To me, at least for my practice, that's the secret right there. And so I'm sitting there in rehab 10 years ago, imagining, I'm like, okay, I want a 2-story creative laboratory with a gallery in the front and a work area in the back with these tables. And I want a dog. I didn't have a dog at the time. I'm like, I want a dog also. The dog's tromping through there. And then a photo studio and some sort of spray paint and music and fashion. I want to create this like creative playground for myself, and begin intention setting on that until maybe a year later, maybe a year and a half. I need to really track that timeline. It didn't take more than a year for me to have awesome. Exactly that. It's pretty, I've never really thought about it in those terms. And what's crazy is the building I have in Hermosa Beach that can facilitate that. I don't know that there's any other buildings that can, like in Hermosa, like it's a 1 square mile city. And now that I've spent more time looking around, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I got like the one building that's like perfectly fit for this. And the way it happened, which is, I mean, the way, and you guys know this, I can sense already, you guys know this, the way that the universe dances, it's rarely what we expect, but it always shows up. Right. And so I decide, and this is the power of intention, right? Okay, so this is my intention. I want this thing. Well, what can I do today towards that goal? Let me go volunteer for my daughter's elementary school. Let me help the art teacher. That seems like start connecting to kids, start connecting to the local art teacher. Makes sense. My daughter was in 2nd grade at the time. And so I call him up. Hey, can I connect you with the art teacher? Oh, we don't have an art teacher. Wait, you guys don't have an art teacher? No, we haven't had one in like almost 10 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. So then I get a hold of the teacher and say, hey, can I take every kid in the class on a macro photography walk? So they're holding these big DSLR cameras, and the sight of it's really awesome because they're so young and the cameras are so big, these with the big lenses. And the idea around it was to help them to learn to see the texture everywhere in life, to help them learn how to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. And through an up-close macro lens, that begins to happen, where leaves or concrete or bricks or trash all of a sudden has this patina of reality of life, and that they can begin to see this at such a young age. So I take all the kids on this photo walk, and one of these kids, and it's so crazy, it was the first kid that went. So the first kid raises their hand. I'm like, okay, I'll take the eager kid in the front. We go for a walk. And he shoots like maybe 25 to 28 photos. And about like 22 of them, 23, they're shooting on manual focus. 22 or 23 are like on point, like rad shots, but focused. I'm like, okay, cool. Wow. Anybody can do this. This is great. I thought you'd take all the rest of the kids for the walk, and they'll shoot 25 photos, like 5 are in focus. And like 2 are worth sharing. And it was after, and I 5th kid, 10th kid, 15. I realized early on, like, oh my gosh, this is going to take me all year to get through 30-minute walks with like 25 different kids. But by the 15th kid, this first kid was in a completely different altitude than the rest of them, right? And so I'm like, let me reach out to this kid's parents. So I reach out to them like, hey, I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm another parent in the class and your kid's got a really amazing eye. I don't, like, here's how I know. Here's a bunch of his photos that he shot, right? And the photos are like weird artsy photos that I get, understanding the nature and science of composition and movement and all these different things. So like, and they pop off the page. Some stuff just does, even if it's not, of anything interesting. And that's the art form. And so they write back, oh, cool, thanks. Like, it makes sense. I'm an architect and he's a builder. Cool. Thanks for taking our kid on a photo walk. Got it. And so I'm like, I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. The very next day, the new Star Wars reboot came out. I'm going with my daughter.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Routine.
You know how some morning your brain's just like, come on, let's go. And your body's like, that's okay. I'm good. I'm going to go back to bed.
All too well. That's why we've been starting our day with Morning Routine. And it's been a total reset for us.
Morning Routine is a simple blend of apple cider vinegar, Himalayan sea salt, and 6 essential electrolytes that are needed to rehydrate your body fast and get you in gear for your day.
It's clean, it's natural, and it actually tastes really good. It's like fresh lemon water with a little extra magic.
No sugar, no junk, no weird ingredients. Just real hydration that helps with energy, focus, and getting your day feeling right and ready to go.
If you want to feel better in the morning without relying on stimulants, head over to yourroutine.com/Steph Craig and be sure to enter promo code Steph Craig to save 10% on your order.
Make healthy hydration your habit and start each day strong with Morning Routine.
And I look over and here is this kid that I went for a photo walk with or just emailed his parents standing next to me, no parents around. It was like this. I'm like, are you here with people? Like, you're like 7.
He's just here to see Star Wars.
Yeah, no. And he was there too to see Star Wars. And here's the dad. And I'm like, oh, I emailed you yesterday. Right. I'm that guy. Okay, cool. We started talking and then and he's like, well, hey, me and my wife have this building down in Hermosa, and it's Scandinavian, beach design furniture up front. And he runs his business out of there as an electrician and a builder. And she ran an architecture firm out of there. They had this space, and it was like a mixed, we call it like a WeWork type of office rental on the upstairs. And he's like, why don't you guys do an end of year party to show off all this photography? That's awesome. Right. Let's do this. And so then we do that. And then a few months after that, I decide, well, would you let me rent it for a week for an art show? Because there were zero. The other reason why we started the nonprofit is because there were 0 galleries in Hermosa at the time. So I'm like sitting there going, my daughter doesn't have art in her elementary school. There's no galleries. This ignites my heart in a way that I'm passionate. How do I go down this path? And it was in alignment with, the wanting to teach awareness and wanting to have a creative space like that. So all of this stuff was kind of percolating together. And so I asked Steve, would you let me rent it for a week to have an art show? Because when there are no galleries in a city, what happens is the local artists stop creating. What happens is their homes become so full of their own art that they're like they feel like they've imprisoned their family. I'm speaking from experience. Like they've imprisoned their family in so much artwork around. It's like this private gallery. Like, I hope they like it because they're like surrounded in it. And so when an artist gets to that point, they can stop creating because they're like, I don't have anywhere else to put stuff, right? That's what happens when there's no galleries in a community. So I'm like, hey, can I rent this for a week? I want to throw this art show. I want to call it Water and Wood. Run for a week. Yeah, man. So he rents it out the front room where the furniture was normally being shown for a week. And it was such a massive show. Like it was such a massive turnout. Like you could tell that the city was just like hungry, like thirsty for an art show. And, Saturday happens. A couple of days later, I'm like, hey man, like how much you charge me for like keep it for the rest of the month? Right. And so it was a couple grand. So then I went to all the artists in the show. I said, okay, if we divvy up this between all of us, it'll be like whatever, $50 a piece, and we can keep it. And you can even come work out of the front room during the day, and we can keep the exhibit up. Everybody, Annie's in. And that was the creation of the South Bay Artists Collective. That was the creation of the body of artists that to this day are the lifeblood of the organization and the movement here. And then I'm like, as the month was ending, I'm like, hey, can I rent this for another month and another month? And then soon I got some of the back room and then half the back room. And then within 3 years, I took over the upstairs. So I got my dragon claw in, and I just never let go on this building. And the reason why it was a long walk, I appreciate you guys humoring like the long story of it. But the reason why I told those details is, for me, that's how like the synchronistic and noteworthy pattern of the universe shows up. And by watching the subtleties, I can begin to see the pattern in a way when I know when to follow the white rabbit, because it's God winking at me or whatever you want to source his pattern. And that becomes like my intuitive, pathway and roadmap. So if you ask the question, how is it that Indivisible Arts has gotten to here? I would say it's at the combination of, having a clear intention and turning that into a vision and doing the work, the practice, day in, day out, quarterly, solstices. And I'm about, 3 months to 9 months ahead of reality. And that's just the constant practice, right? And it's a combination of that and knowing when to follow the pattern, right? Knowing when to like follow the white rabbit, because we can begin to see its subtle nature showing up in patterns that tell us to go further.
Did you have awareness, Rafael? That's a beautiful story, by the way. And I love how you highlight the fact that, the universe you're going, I shouldn't say you're going to get what you're asking for. That sounds ominous, but like it's going to come in a path that doesn't necessarily make sense when you're experiencing it. And it takes the opportunity to like look back and see how it all lined up. Was that something that you had awareness of as it was kind of unfolding and happening because you've experienced it before? Like we have those kind of crazy, we talked about the weekend that we, went to the Abraham Hicks or whatever 2 weeks ago. The whole thing was like that, like from the get-go, every moment, that was just a little microcosm of experience for us. But it's stuff that we've experienced enough now that like when it starts happening, we're just like, oh, it's getting good because everything is just lining up exactly the way that it should in order to get us from, wherever it is that we're going. But did you have awareness at that point in time when all of this was happening that it's like, oh, this is really good energy and everything's going in the right direction because all these things are lining up the way that it's supposed to happen in a sense? Or did all of this kind of awareness stuff come after the fact for you?
Great question. And so the actual accurate answer is both. Because being in that synchronistic flow, we know how that feels intuitively. We don't need to be taught that. We know when it's just in flow. So that part, yes. And it was probably like pandemic when, and I was really at the point I was focused on deepening my humility. And I would define the humility not in relation to humiliation or any concept like that, more so in being right-sized, being at like knowing my place in the world and being at peace with that, and realize like compared to the universe vastness and all of its dimensions is pretty small, and that's a-okay. And in looking at reality's patterns with a sense of humility, then what I see is, as an executive director, I have to have a plan, and it's a business plan. We're a nonprofit, but it's a business plan. And here's our next year, here's our next 18 months. And I have to have a vision that I can get everybody on board, and it has to fiscally make sense, has to be a plan. And I think if I'm being honest with myself, then those plans, that formula has to include the universe's grace for the magical and positive stuff to happen. And so where it's challenging is, I don't go there with like my board, or like I mask it, and they're satisfied with the plan as it is, the formula of here's all the things we're going to do. And in my heart, I know, and it's going to be the grace that makes it happen. If a person's being real with themselves and they look at their successes, more often than not, and it was during pandemic I began to reflect on this, there was grace that got involved at some point, and the whole project took a right turn unexpectedly because one person's brother knew a guy, and then the rest is history. And I think my ego likes to think I've earned all of this, build it brick by brick. But if there isn't that supportive grace or those synchronicities that open up to really, fruitful opportunities, without that, and so it's just fascinating, like looking back at successes and realizing that it's not always because I worked my ass off to build every brick at a time. It's like there's the universe's grace in there. So that's when I began to really realize and honor with in a greater amount that, like the universe has got me, and I'm going to keep praying every morning because of it. I'm going to keep doing these visualizations. I'm going to keep believing in it, because I don't know if the universe gives me what I want, but I think the universe gives me what I believe.
Ooh, and, I like that.
And it feels about right.
So if that's the beginning of all of it, what does it look like today? Like, how far has it come in the last 10 years?
Sure. So we just finished writing our first book, which is the tool guide, these 7 tools that we're focused on teaching these kids. Good stuff is finding us without us trying to find it.
Nice.
And we've got a community of, 90 some odd artists with some of their work, and they're teaching all these kids. These are local high schoolers. And we've built an ecosystem, a web here in South Bay, California, that integrates in the top high school artists and creatives from 12 different high schools to be volunteers, getting their nonprofit volunteer hours for college, alongside another 90 to 100 artists, professional adult artists that are the lifeblood. And you put all that together with other local, partners and brands and stores and sponsors, foundations, community members. And now we've created this, community of compassion and creativity and consciousness that is being cultivated by this entire region here. And it's success looks like, here's our logo as a division sign with an X through it, as in no division, indivisible. And it was drawn by a 7-year-old, by the way. And it was during an intention setting practice, because we were drawing symbols for our intentions, and his intention was to hate math homework less. And he did a division sign with an X through it, as in like no bad vibe multiplication. And I'm like, wait, that's unity, no division. And so what success looks like is walking around town and seeing this, scribbled into post signs, or seeing it on the kids' notebooks at school. And so, we've got a partner program that is at the heart of what we do, which is teaching these 7 tools in the foster system here. So there's a high school that focuses on kids that are foster youth, system affected youth. I think we had 6 pregnant young ladies in our class this year, people coming back from being incarcerated. And we teach these tools as California state accepted English curriculum, right? So I'm going in there as an English teacher, which is just so fun, every Monday morning to these students, and they have their English teacher there as well. And then this is what they're learning about, these mental and emotional health tools, or what they're writing about for their English, so that they don't just write, but become in the process. That to me would seem to make sense. This is what we should be doing in our education system. So we've taken, we're in Hermosa Beach. I think last year we took every 5th grader in the school district through this program, through learning these tools. Can you share the
tools with us? Is that,
yeah.
Can we go over the 7? I'd love to hear what they are.
I'm sorry, I actually can't share them with you, but for $99.99, no, I'm just playing. Yes, of course. Right. For $12.99 on Amazon, you can find this, the Fundamental Life Tools.
We'll be sure to share it down in the show notes too, so the link will be there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because the idea behind this book is that some kid somewhere that I will never meet, who's writhing in their own internal pain and frustration because they just got suspended again for vaping for the third time. They don't even know why they vape, but they just can't stop. And why does my mom this and this? And they're struggling. And I want them to have a free place they can come to. We're building an online platform, the Emerging Consciousness Broadcast Center. There's actually a prototype up, and we go into filming for all of July with these local high schoolers. I want them to have a free place to come where they can start learning tools now, right away, and tools that work. And, I spent a year as a patient in, trauma therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, EMDR, soma, or somatic, and soma too. No, just somatic. All of those different modalities to explore what works and what's out there, and then try to take the best 5 to 10% from all of them and fuse them into a system that's really practical. And that's what this is. And when pandemic happened, and me and a bunch of others in the recovery community saw how much the kids around here were suffering, and one of them, a 7th grader, OD'd here and died on Xanax 3 or 4 months into the pandemic. And it's like, oh man, we don't know how these kids, we don't know what a 10-year-old at that point in life, how that shows up when they're 27. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, these kids are going to need tools, and no one else seems to be doing anything. So let me do what I can. And I went to, the so many top local therapists and sponsors and president of a health district. And if we were to make a single set of 7 tools, it's the fundamental set of 7 tools, inner tools, what would they be? And a lot of great tools get left on the chopping block. There's so many tools. There's hundreds of tools, and there's so many concepts. But trying to teach them to a kid in a way that it becomes native to who they are and how they think, 7 felt to me about the maximum amount of number they want. So they're not trying to memorize it. It's just part of who they are. Right.
Yeah.
And there's other, 7's a beautiful number for all sorts of reasons. Right. And so the 7 wisdom tools, which, real quick, we used to call them the creative wisdom tools when they were created in pandemic in our creative laboratory. And all the way up until 3 months ago, everyone around here knows them as the creative wisdom tools. And 3 months ago, I realized, if this is about making this also available to a kid who's in Kansas, or a kid who's in the Midwest, or whatever it is, and creative, maybe they don't view themselves as a creative person, and wisdom sounds woo-woo, West Coast. What is this? Okay, how can we make an inviting name that makes it more available to everyone, and also something that getting your certification in these fundamental life tools telegraphs immediately on a college resume or a job resume, right? And so now we call them the fundamental life tools. And without further ado, thank you for your patience. So the first one is that tool of awareness. That's the fundamental building block. You are not your thoughts. You're the one having the thoughts. And since I'm observing my thoughts, I can transform them. Bam. That's the on switch. No matter what class we're teaching, we talk about that for 5 minutes at the beginning of class, and they hear it from each other instead of hearing it from me, because that transforms the concepts as well, for them to be able to hear it in each other's words about watching their thoughts and so on. So a lot of kids watch your thoughts, change your mind. There it is, awareness. Watch your thoughts, change your mind. Tool 2 that we teach, acceptance. Acceptance. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today, because if I'm upset, it's because I find some person, place, or thing unacceptable. And I cannot be back at serenity on the inside until I accept reality as it is. Anything outside my hula hoop is not mine to control. And it isn't about me having expectations for the world. It's about me surrendering what is beyond my own control. So I can be at, if anything, neutral. So I got a shot at finding gratitude, joy, happiness, all the good stuff. Until I can get to acceptance and neutrality, then I can't realistically expect to be in the good stuff. right? So that's the second way we teach. That way, anyone who's coming in, immediately starts to get relief, right? Beginning to practice acceptance, I start to get relief over my frustrations. But a person who's acting up in all these ways and getting sent to therapists by their school or parents or whatever it is, it's so much turmoil in there about all the things that frustrate them and upset them about life that then they're recreating that energy in the real world, right? And
this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Heritage Still. The newest season of The Bear just dropped, and there's nothing that makes me feel more like a professional chef than using our Heritage Still stainless steel cookware anytime I'm cooking.
Hell yeah, chef. This is serious heirloom quality cookware, handcrafted right here in Tennessee.
It heats evenly, it cleans up fast, and it feels like it's made to last. Honestly, it feels like the kind of cookware that you'd be able to pass down to your grandkids.
None of their cookware is coated in that toxic nonstick chemical crap. It's high-grade, multi-clad stainless steel and built for everyday use.
So if you're ready to stop replacing all of your cheap pans every other year, do yourself a favor and upgrade to Heritage Still cookware.
Head to heritagestill.us/Steph and Craig. Be sure to enter promo code Steph and Craig so you can save 10% on your order.
It's time your cookware works as hard as you do. Heritage Still, crafted to cook and built to last.
so then we start combating the behavior instead of giving them a tool for the inner. And this tool that begins to calm and create relief in their inside world is this tool of accepting reality as it is and learning to have peace with everything, because everything is exactly how it's supposed to be in this universe. And that's a technical fact. That's not even God speak. Everything, by the time unfolding over the mechanics of the laws of science, where if I drop this, it drops to at the speed of gravity, all of those mechanics unfold into a reality for which it is true to say everything is happening exactly as it's supposed to in this universe. There's a lot of peace in that, and a lot of peace of being able to draw that sense of certitude and strength from the scientific expression and understanding of reality itself, right? Because then the pathway to God isn't simply through other religions' conception of God, but my own inner one that can be science, right? So, but I'm jumping ahead. That's tool 7. So back, awareness, tool 1, acceptance, tool 2, tool 3, intention. In the same way that I was talking about being in rehab and doing these visualizations a la Joe Dispenza via Joey Tabanella, teaching these kids how to know what it is they want, turn into a 3D holographic vision movie, fuse that vision with heart energy, go do anything about it. This fourth one, well, I want this, but I don't know how to make it come true. You don't need a plan. You don't need a plan. You just need to know what you can do today and show up and do it again tomorrow and just keep walking that path. And more too will be revealed, and you'll turn around a bend or a corner and there'll be a new vista that gives you access to new information when it's supposed to be available, right? And so just doing what we can do today. So that's how we teach intention. The fourth tool we teach is now we're starting to put the first 3 tools together in almost like a judo move, almost like in a combination move. And we teach this tool, the tool of gratitude. And here's what I mean. We teach as a tool of flipping a G. All the kids say, talk about flipping a G, flipping a lens of gratitude, flip a G on it, right? Which is to say, I hate math homework. I am grateful that I have a fireworks, and I am grateful that God is good. I am grateful that I have a free education and a math teacher who cares about me, and I care about going to college, and I'll be able to afford to go to college. And I like learning. So I'm grateful for all that. Okay, now let me sit down and do my math homework. Hearing the kids understand the concept of why is it that this is so valuable, because they know their mindset when they sit down to do homework and the tape playing in their head is, oh, I hate homework and this sucks. What is the experience they have? It sucks. And one thing we cover with awareness is that anything I say up there, that's a program. I hate homework. Well, now that program is running, and now everything they're going to see is going to suck about math homework, versus I'm grateful I have a free education, a teacher who cares about me, and I'm not that bad at math. I'm just not the best at it. I like learning. Okay, well, it's not going to make the math homework go away, but it's going to make it suck less by like 15 to 25% that day. We'll take it, right? Gratitude can be this tool to flip negative things into positive ones or slightly switch a perspective. And ultimately, it's the aggregation of the tools of awareness, acceptance, I have math homework, it is what it is, into intend, well, what is the most optimal, positive feeling I could want in any given moment through creating an intention for it is gratitude, is joy, is super good vibes, call it what you will, love, that thing. Well, let me put together awareness of where I'm at with my math homework, acceptance, I'm accepting it as it is, intention, I want this new mindset that's positive, and let me put them into one swift move and call it G flipping. So that's how they learn gratitude, right? In part because, like me, a lot of these kids, you say the word gratitude and they go, ugh, because the only time they hear the word gratitude is when their parents are making them feel another G, guilty. Well, you should be grateful for this and you should be grateful for that. So they don't necessarily love the word gratitude. That's what one thing that we found out in building this program iteratively with the kids. And that's why this thing is so tight and dynamite, is because it was created with their generation. Like, it's filled with illustrations by the youth who understand these concepts and then reimagine them and regurgitate them in a way that's native to them. I've got another gal who, she would meditate on each one of these tools, and then while meditating on it would draw a hand-drawn mandala. Wow. Obviously meditating with her eyes open, but a mandala for each one of them. And so those are in the book, right? So this book is like christened with the energy, the specific inner geometry of what each of these tools is, as recreated by a 17-year-old who is the embodiment of the practice.
That's beautiful.
We must be doing something right if this is the expression that it's coming out as. I made the book the exact same size as Be Here Now. It's exactly like just under 8 inches. So that if they were to be together on a bookshelf, if you knew, you knew. If you know, you're like, oh my gosh, this fits just next to this book. And for this one to have a shot at feeling inherently like a reimagination of that concept of that book, but for a new generation. And for it to be illustrations, for it to be, I think that's the first time I ever saw a book that wasn't just writing. And it made me go, oh, wow, yeah, you could have illustrations. And I never really thought about that, you know?
Right.
I remember finding it on my dad.
Gratitude was 4 or 5?
That is 4.
Okay, what's 5?
Allah Thich Nhat Hanh and Buddha, compassion, right? It's a good one. These are the top 7 we can think of. Listen, let's do the challenge, and it's a lifetime invitation to you guys. If you guys ever think of a tool that you're like, yo, this should be one of the 7, like, I'm sorry, the other ones are good, I'm open to it. I'm so open to it. I care most about this being the most killer set that we could ever make, right? And admittedly, I think we're going to move it from 7 to 12 so that we can like sync it up with months and stuff like that. So that is now an open creative invitation on thinking through the other 5. And I'm going to be just sourcing them from everywhere, and we'll take the best answers and continue to make this thing for the next generation. So 5, compassion. 6, forgiveness. Forgiveness and resentment. Ooh, right? For the stuff that's such deep poison in the heart that I can't let go of it because I'm too connected to the taste of the pain. For stuff like that, acceptance is the right direction, but it's not heavy duty enough. I need forgiveness. And then after forgiveness, the 7th and final one is connection. Connection to each other and service. And we've built such an amazing service culture. The teenagers I have are so like if you guys are ever in LA, we're only 20 minutes from LAX, please come check it out. When visitors, especially adults, see and experience the energy and the vibe of, we just did summer camp with 25 teenage volunteers, and like, they're so in it, and they're so not only please, thank you, how can I help you? Like, all the things, man, it's just wicked, and it's real, and it's doable when you get that many conscious people together. Come visit Resin, and you'll experience 25 teenagers that are awake and conscious, and 25 younger youth that they're paired up helping develop, and probably all but maybe 3 are conscious because they're newer kids to the program and it takes a while to set in. It doesn't happen overnight. You develop through awareness until 9 weeks or 9 months or 2 years in. Okay, it's grabbed hold and you're conscious now, right? And that many conscious people together has got a vibe to it. Am I right? I mean, think about the few places that you go, maybe just different workshops that are very conscious people, right? And maybe just post meditation and you feel the room and you're like, yeah, okay. Most places, 99.9% of places in reality, that's not the case, right? We'd be hard pressed to find someone where there's more conscious than not conscious people, defined as this being the aware observer. But for it to be 100%, ooh, that's got a feeling to it. And I'm excited to share that feeling with you guys if you guys are ever in town. So connection to each other in service, connection to myself, my own soul. By this point, we're talking in terms of like, they've gone through the tools. They're at the end of the tools. Who here has a soul? Well, everybody has a soul except for that one smart ass kid in the back who's like, I don't have a soul. It happens in every single class like clockwork. And okay, well then let's just put it in terms of awareness is soul watching brain. I am a soul that's witnessing all of my brain's activity. There we go, right? And when we bring soul onto the table, so many other concepts unlock, right? I think soul is like AI. Let that sit for a second and all the things that it means without us even saying anything. And the 2 things that it cannot do, and this is what we teach these kids, the 2 things that AI cannot do if you want job security. For a lot of them, it's job security. It's like, oh my gosh, will that career even be around? Graphic designer, right? People helping people, serving each other, right? Human souls, creativity, right? There it is. I hear you. Sorry, that was distracting.
Right?
You guys have a button over there? Did you guys hit a button over there? Is that
no?
like the
totally
prank that you do on your
integrated thing into the system that
Yeah,
I don't know what they are.
They
throw us off every time. This is the most that we've ever seen before. So,
I'll try to continue to gesticulate and see if we can't summon them.
Your hands up in the air, Rafael,
seems like
super awesome.
Yeah.
There you go. There's the other thumb. Yeah. I want to know what's next for you guys. Like, where do you see?
I have some questions.
Okay,
first.
sorry, babe.
Okay,
no, that's okay.
I was slow. Wait, hold up. I was slow rolling on the concept of soul. Let me get your question, but I do want to close out like the rest of the tools if you're open to it. Which is because we're on that 7th tool connection, and it was connection to each other in service, connection to my own soul, primarily through art is the language of the soul. So any art form I'm doing is an expression of soul, and therefore it's present, and you can grow it and cultivate it when you understand, when we put the conception of soul development onto the page. Now there's things I can do to develop my soul, art being the most accessible. And then lastly, connection to a higher power of my own understanding. And so this entire community of now over 1,000 kids have all got a connection to their higher power, but it's all on their own terms. And for a lot of them, it's science or some pathway down that direction. And that's cool as hell. And it's awesome because none of them know what I believe. It's not about me pushing my dogma. None of them know what I believe. It's them decide. When we teach it that day, I go, cool, I'm not going to say anything. Here, you guys say stuff. We'll put it up on the whiteboard. And it's like, God, and I write, what is it that you believe controls the universe or governs the universe? And it's like God, Mother Earth, Father Sky, Source Creative, Karma, Cause and Effect, laws of science. Once we get to laws of science, I'm like, can we talk about this? Is science a power greater than you? Uh-huh. Can you make science your higher power? Yeah. Now let's meditate and go inward. Place your hands on your heart, and let's see if you can connect to the energy and the power of science and everything that it is. Next thing you know, you've got 50 kids in the room all meditating together with that sense of depth of the intentionality of connecting to their higher power. And we just did this in summer camp last week, right? There's probably 80 in the room, because it's and it's got a real feel to it. And every single one of them has got a different, a lot of them do have Christianity or Judaism. And so that they go there and they open their eyes and they're like, you can feel that in the room. And I think that's always what I wanted to feel at church, but then few other spots I found it, but I wasn't 8 years old. I was like 26.
Yeah, that's what's so cool. All of this, like the foundation that you're giving these kids, I think is so incredibly important. What was your question?
Okay, question.
I like that you were taking us on the journey of how it's evolving and where you're going. And this book sounds fantastic. Like I want to read the book. That just sounds like it applies to everyone. Like you don't have to just be a child or in that adolescence and growing phase. It's super beneficial for there, but it sounds like it's really something that can touch anybody who wants to sit down and open that book. And that sounds absolutely beautiful. And the fact that you're now looking at a website, so anybody that, anywhere can go. That evolution is so magical. And I think it's so needed, especially because, I'm looking at these, like thinking of older kids, so much we start with these younger kids, which is so good and needed. And then there's also this generation that if they don't have that spark, it's kind of like they get left behind. So finding a way to reach these kids that aren't getting left behind when they don't identify with creative. So like you having that fundamental part is just, it sounds like all of this trajectory sounds really neat. But you mentioned, this is where you are now. 10 years ago, you were in rehab. And when you mentioned that, then 10 years prior to that, it was this 10-year journey, which got you to rehab. So you've said 10 years a few times, and it sounds like there's this cycle, and you have this like life cycle, these 10 years, it's this big shift, this big thing that comes up. And are you noticing, like, cause you're at a 10-year mark, are you noticing some internalized, some personal, are you noticing some shifts coming up into your space?
Sure. That's a great question. And I think how it occurs to me is that we actually have 2.5-year cycles, right? 30-month cycles. But then you total 4 of those 30-month cycles together and you've got 10 years, right? And really longer cycles like that, I actually think it's more of like a natural, like 7.5-year cycle, right? Nonetheless, not to get into the subtle patterns of time. I mean, I can tell you the internal transformations occurring, but I actually think the external ones are more interesting. But the internal one is a shift from, laboring, pushing the boulder up the hill and running life like an engine to walking in grace with the capacity to smile, laugh, and play as an optimized energy for the experience, because it's not weighing as much, because I'm no longer pushing up the hill, and instead of revving it like an engine, I'm playing it like a violin, and that to me is the like the intrinsic shift change that's going on, and I like it, but I'm like not even there. I'm not even scratching the surface of it, of where I'm going to be able to get to as far as having that inner experience. The outer experience, within 10 years, it's 1 million conscious youth. Never has there been a time. I mean, think about the shift that just happened with like the printing press, let alone the Internet of Things. Like, never there's been a time where intellectual contagions can spread like wildfire, and a good kind of contagion of consciousness that can, through the TikTok of things. Never has there been a time where something can literally go viral, right? And consciousness and people being able to see what other people who are conscious look like, sound like, how to get there. Here's the practical tools. Here's the free steps to do it, taught by other people that are your same age. That's where we're going. That's the Emerging Consciousness Broadcast Center. That platform, the emergingc.org, its main function, it'll be very, very simple, but it'll be teens and younger people, but any of the people that have a command and understanding of these tools, going through a format where they're explaining, oh, here's how I overcame college admissions stress. Here's the tool I use, and it's a 7-minute video of them explaining it, right? Like imagine the Khan Academy, but instead of math, they're teaching mental and emotional health tools, right? To each other through lived experience, through kavi. In Sanskrit, there's a concept, kavi, which is the energy of the words spoken by someone who's done the thing. They've lived through it. So there's an energy of truth and authenticity because they've actually experienced it. And that transmission of energy, that inner geometry, is how this gets past the authenticator of the next generation that thinks it's just some more adult stuff they're selling us instead of like peer to peer. This is how I did it. This is how this tool of acceptance into gratitude works. Here's how that combo works. If you want to learn more, you can go over here and you can learn more about it for free. Right. And so imagine like a YouTube of things where you could go and like, I'm struggling with anxiety or stress or fear or weight loss, body image, drugs, a whole myriad of ways to search for it. And that way it can take you to somebody your own age and they're talking about how to overcome that exact same thing in a language that is resonant. And so the site holds that content, which we go into filming all July. Starting next Tuesday, we're filming. I got these kids organized from different schools and all the things, man. And they're excited to be part of something special and birth something into this world for sure. They're psyched. And then the ECBC also contains the 7 tools in, me teaching more longer form content on these tools, how they work and so on. But that's going to get built out so that it's more of a curriculum and it doesn't have to be me, but there's PDFs they can download, all that kind of stuff. And then the last part of the site is the Million Conscious Youth. And all of this is live right now. You can go to a prototype of it right now. I think there's probably only 2 or 3 videos for the tools, but watch as that gets populated this month. And I think there's 25 Million Conscious Youth videos. And these Million Conscious Youth, a lot of these are like a lot of foster kids, a lot of amazing stories and kids who have overcome more than most adults have, for real. And for them to be conscious and be able to talk about it, it's you know it when you see it. It's telegraphic at the capacity for people's consciousness. And so they introduce themselves, they explain how they know they're conscious, and what their life was like before and what it's like now. And so that's kind of like, to become one of the Million Conscious Youth, you got to be able to answer that question, right? And the word conscious, that's a tricky one. So I'd like to define it, right, as a person who is the aware observer of their thoughts. And we don't stay there all 100% of the time. I slide in and out depending on the type of day I've had, right? But a conscious person, when reminded of it, they're like, oh, geez, right. Versus, what do you mean? That's what I would mean. So the reason why it's important, in my opinion, to have this conversation about what consciousness means, what conscious means, and awareness is because people don't know. And it's an abstract word, an abstract concept. And as long as that stays abstract, that hinders our capacity to be skilled in practice and practical about it. And so, creating that shape around it for this next generation so they can run with it. They've got building blocks. They've got the Lego, they've got the Roblox to build with, right? It's on us to help create those blocks. Like I hang out with teens more than anyone I know, I guess, that kids and I guess other teachers, right? But more than the average person. And imagine this. Here's something that one of them said to me that I don't think most adults get. And because I asked them, what's something that your generation, you guys think that like, I don't know you think, and you guys are all on the same page, but most adults don't get it. And it's like, I'm resentful because you guys have no idea how much pressure it is to say to someone like, okay, here, go sit. You're going to be the generation that saves the world. Do good in school. Make sure to do whatever, because you're going to be the generation that saves the world, to a planet that y'all effed up and handed to us. Like that energy is every single kid, 100% of the kids that I've posed that to, they're like, oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, why wouldn't you feel that way? Like that's native to them. Right. So these are these building blocks. These are fundamental building blocks and a fundamental set of tools that I think it's criminal that every school, elementary school, doesn't make sure they have these basic tools of how to use forgiveness, how to use acceptance. You should not be able to get out of high school without showing that you've got that of your set of how to deal with reality on life's terms.
Rafael, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to share all of this with us. I think it's really amazing. We're going to share not just the book and the show notes and everything like that, but what else? Like it's the website is it's indivisiblearts.org, right?
That's right. It'll be indivisiblearts.org. There'll be the Emerging Conscious Broadcast Center, which is theemergingc.org. And then there will probably be a link to the book, The Fundamental Tool Guide, that you can buy it on Amazon.
Awesome. And you guys are on social as well and all those other fun places too, right?
That's right. Yeah. Just look for indivisible_arts. There's another Indivisible Arts in Washington, D.C. So be it. They're doing different stuff. It's going to be okay. But I think you'll know us when you see us. We vibe very different.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rafael. Is there anything
Thank
else
you both.
Thank you so much for sharing so much.
This has been really fun. I hope to do this again sometime because you guys are fabulous. You guys are you're gracious hosts. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely,
We
man.
got a wild ride. Wait and see, you and me. We were meant to be.
Thanks for listening to The Steph and Craig Show. There's new episodes of The Steph and Craig Show every week. And if you're resonating with our podcast, please take a moment to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with somebody. And be sure to check out some of these clips as well. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you all next week.